Inspector James Robinson had conducted hundreds of surprise health inspections, but he'd never had the police called on him while doing his job. When the coffee shop owner decided he looked suspicious, she had no idea she was about to fail more than just a health inspection.
Don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, and a comment before we start to learn more about what happened.
The morning rush at Brew and Bean Coffee House was winding down as the clock approached 10:30 a.m. Located in the trendy downtown district of Riverside, the small coffee shop had become a popular destination for young professionals, college students, and remote workers seeking a cozy atmosphere and decent Wi-Fi. Linda Chen, the 34-year-old owner, took pride in running what she considered a respectable establishment. She had opened Brew and Bean 3 years earlier with her life savings, and while business was good, she was always worried about maintaining the right atmosphere for her clientele. Inspector James Robinson parked his unmarked city vehicle across the street and checked his tablet one more time. Brew and Bean was on his list for a surprise health and safety inspection, part of the city's quarterly compliance program. At 42, James had been a building and health inspector for the city for 8 years, and he took his job seriously. His inspections were thorough but fair, and he always gave business owners opportunities to correct minor violations before issuing citations. James was dressed in his usual work attire, dark jeans, a polo shirt with the city logo, and steel-toed boots. His clipboard, measuring tools, and official badge were in a leather messenger bag. To most people, he looked like a contractor or maintenance worker, which was often helpful during surprise inspections. As James entered the coffee shop, he was immediately struck by the pleasant aroma of freshly ground coffee and baked goods. The space was clean and modern, with exposed brick walls, pendant lighting, and a mix of small tables and comfortable seating areas. About a dozen customers were scattered throughout, most working on laptops or reading. He approached the counter where Linda was organizing inventory sheets. "Good morning," he said politely. "Could I get a medium black coffee, please?" Linda looked up and immediately felt uncomfortable. The black man standing before her didn't fit the usual profile of her morning customers. His clothes were casual, work-oriented, and he carried a bag that looked like it could contain tools. She had heard about recent break-ins in the area, and her anxiety began to rise. "That'll be $3.50, she said curtly, avoiding eye contact as she poured the coffee. James paid and found a table near the back corner where he could observe the entire operation. He pulled out his tablet and began taking notes, documenting the layout, observing food handling procedures, and checking for visible health code compliance issues. From behind the counter, Linda watched him suspiciously. The man had been sitting there for 20 minutes, barely touching his coffee, and constantly writing in what looked like a notebook. He was taking pictures with his phone and seemed to be studying the restaurant's operations intently. After an hour, Linda's concern had transformed into alarm. The man was clearly casing the business, probably planning a robbery. She had read about criminals who studied establishments before targeting them, and everything about his behavior seemed suspicious. She called her assistant manager, Kevin, over to the counter. "See that guy in the back corner?" she whispered. "He's been here over an hour, barely drinking his coffee, taking notes, and photographing the place. I think he's planning something." Kevin, a 23-year-old college student, glanced over at James. "Maybe he's just working. Lots of people use the Wi-Fi here." "Look at him," Linda insisted. "Does he look like our usual customers? He's dressed like a construction worker, and he keeps staring at our cash register and back exit. I'm calling the police." Kevin felt uncomfortable with the suggestion. "Linda, maybe we should just ask him if he needs anything else." "No," Linda said firmly. "I have a business to protect. I'm not taking any chances." While Linda debated with Kevin, James continued his inspection from his table. He had already noted several minor issues. a loose handrail on the stairs to the bathroom, some missing grout in the tile work near the food prep area, and a few electrical outlets that needed covers. Nothing serious, but items that would need attention. He was particularly impressed with the cleanliness of the operation. The staff seemed well trained in food safety procedures, and the kitchen area visible from his vantage point appeared to meet health code requirements. James stood up to get a closer look at the emergency exit signage and fire extinguisher placement. As he walked around the seating area with his tablet, taking notes and occasionally measuring distances with a small tape measure, Linda's suspicions reached a breaking point. She retreated to the back office and dialed 911. 911? What's your emergency? Hi, I need police at Brew Bean Coffee House on 5th Street. There's a suspicious man who's been here for almost 2 hours. He's been taking pictures, writing notes, studying our layout, and I think he's planning to rob us. Is he threatening anyone or behaving aggressively? No, but he's clearly casing the place. He doesn't belong here, and I want him removed. Officers will be there shortly, ma'am. James, unaware of the call, continued his work. He approached the counter area to observe food preparation more closely and check the temperature logs that should be posted for refrigeration units. Excuse me, he said to Kevin, who was cleaning the espresso machine. Could you tell me what your procedure is for cleaning the coffee equipment? Kevin looked nervously toward the back office where Linda had disappeared. We clean it every few hours and do a deep clean at closing. That's good, James replied, making a note. And do you keep temperature logs for your refrigerated items? Before Kevin could answer, Linda emerged from the office and confronted James directly. Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave, she said, her voice shaking with nervous authority. James looked up from his tablet, confused. I'm sorry. You've been here for 2 hours, taking pictures and notes. You're making my customers and staff uncomfortable. I need you to leave now. James remained calm. I understand your concern, but I'm actually here on official business. I'm conducting a routine inspection. Inspection? Linda's voice rose. You're not an inspector. Inspectors don't just sit around for hours pretending to be customers. Ma'am, I'm Inspector James Robinson with the city's Health and Building Safety Department. I was conducting an observational assessment before introducing myself officially. Linda laughed dismissively. Right, and I'm the mayor. Look, I don't know what kind of scam you're running, but I've called the police. They'll be here any minute. James reached into his bag and pulled out his official city identification badge. This is my badge and identification. I'm here to conduct a routine health and safety inspection of your establishment. Linda barely glanced at the badge. Anyone can buy a fake badge online. I want you out of my store now, or I'll have you arrested for trespassing. At that moment, 2 police officers entered the coffee shop. Officer Martinez and Officer Thompson approached the scene, immediately assessing the situation. We got a call about a suspicious person, Officer Martinez said to Linda. Is this the individual? Yes, Linda said, pointing at James. He's been here for hours, taking pictures, casing the place. He claims to be some kind of inspector, but he's obviously lying. Officer Thompson looked at James, who was calmly holding his identification. Sir, could you show me some ID? James handed over his driver's license and his official city inspector badge. Officer Thompson examined both documents carefully. Ma'am, Officer Thompson said to Linda, this gentleman is Inspector James Robinson with the city. His credentials are legitimate. Linda's face went white. That's impossible. Inspectors don't work like this. They make appointments. Officer Martinez spoke up. Actually, ma'am, surprise inspections are standard procedure. Inspector Robinson, were you conducting an official inspection here? Yes, officer, James replied. Brew and Bean was on my list for a quarterly health and safety compliance check. I always begin with an observational period to see normal operations before introducing myself formally. Linda stared at the badge in Officer Thompson's hands, reality beginning to sink in. But, but you were sitting there for hours, taking pictures, documenting compliance with health codes, fire safety regulations, and accessibility requirements, James explained patiently. It's standard procedure. Officer Martinez turned to Linda. Ma'am, you called 911 to report a city inspector doing his job. Inspector Robinson was here legally, conducting official business. I didn't know, Linda stammered. He didn't look like... Like what? Officer Thompson asked. Linda realized she was about to reveal the racial bias that had driven her assumptions. Like an inspector, she finished weakly. The coffee shop had fallen completely silent. Every customer was watching the scene unfold, and several were recording with their phones. James addressed the officers. I appreciate your response, but I'd like to continue my inspection now. Ms. Chen, I'll need to examine your food preparation areas, storage facilities, and safety equipment. Linda nodded mutely, still in shock from the revelation. As the officers left, James began his formal inspection. What he found was largely positive. The establishment was clean, well-maintained, and mostly compliant with health codes. However, his report would need to include more than just technical violations. Ms. Chen, James said as he completed his documentation, your establishment passes the health and safety inspection with only minor issues that need attention within 30 days. Linda felt a wave of relief. Thank you, Inspector Robinson. I'm so sorry about the misunderstanding. James looked at her seriously. Ms. Chen, I need you to understand that what happened today wasn't a misunderstanding. You made assumptions about who I was based on my appearance, and you called the police on a city official doing his job. I know, and I'm embarrassed about that. I was just trying to protect my business. Protect it from what, exactly? James asked. From a black man sitting quietly and drinking coffee? Linda struggled to find words that wouldn't make the situation worse. I thought you looked suspicious. Suspicious how? Because I was taking notes? Because I was observing your business? Or because I'm black and didn't fit your idea of what a customer should look like? The question hung in the air, forcing Linda to confront the racial bias that had driven her actions. I don't want to believe I'm racist, Linda said quietly. But I can't deny that your race influenced my assumptions. I'm ashamed of that. James appreciated her honesty. Ms. Chen, implicit bias is real and it affects all of us. But when you act on those biases, there are consequences. Today, you wasted police resources, disrupted my work, and created a hostile environment for other customers. He handed her his inspection report. You have 30 days to address the minor violations I found, but I also want you to think about what happened today. Every day, people who look like me are subjected to suspicion and hostility in places where we have every right to be. Linda read through the report, noting the fair assessment and reasonable timeline for corrections. Inspector Robinson, is there anything I can do to make this right? James considered her question. Education, training for you and your staff about unconscious bias, and maybe take some time to reflect on why you assumed the worst about someone who was simply doing his job. 3 weeks later, Linda enrolled herself and her entire staff in a diversity and inclusion workshop. She also put up a sign in her coffee shop. All customers are welcome here. We celebrate diversity and treat everyone with respect. Inspector James Robinson completed his report, noting both the technical compliance issues and the incident that had occurred during the inspection. His supervisor commended him for handling the situation professionally and used the case as a training example for other inspectors who might face similar situations. and Brew Bean Coffee House became known not just for its good coffee, but as a place that had learned from its mistakes and committed to being truly welcoming to everyone. Because sometimes the most important inspections aren't about health codes and safety regulations. They're about examining our own hearts and minds and having the courage to change what we find there.